And welcome everybody to the Huddle. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Paris. It's K9 streaming sports talk show. We join you every Tuesday at this time, talk a little sports. We're going to talk, of course, U of A football, the coaching change at ASU with Herm Edwards out. But first, we're going to start with a little Arizona Coyotes, and we're joined by our special guest this week. He is Coyotes defenseman Dysin Mayo, as the team gets set to come down to Tucson this Sunday for an exhibition game, a preseason game that is against the Anaheim Ducks. Dysin, Jason, and Pat here. Thanks so much for a couple of minutes. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. Well, nobody's played more hockey games at the Tucson Arena than you have. I'm sure that you're looking forward to coming down this time with a Coyote sweater on.
Yeah, for sure. I'm hoping I'm playing that preseason game. Like you said, I've spent a lot of time in Tucson, so it's like a second home to me now, and it'd mean a lot to me to come down there and play.
Dysin, how nice is it to go into a season with a 3-year contract with the Coyotes, knowing that you finally, I guess, realized that dream of being an NHLer full time now?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely gives you confidence going into camp. Definitely haven't felt this way going into camp before, so it's a nice feeling. But at the same time, I mean, nothing's ever guaranteed in this league, so you still got to go in prepared and make the most of it and make an impression on the coaching staff.
Dysin, is it appreciated more because you were drafted, I believe, in 2014? It took you 7 years to get up, and certainly when you did, you made the most of it. You played well enough that you were one of the top 4 defensemen, and they gave you a 3-year contract. Does it mean a little extra more to you, considering how much you had to pay your dues to get up to the National League?
Yeah, for sure. Spent a lot of time in Tucson, and it was a grind. I mean, not getting an opportunity until I think it was year 6, so it was a long time coming, but I just stuck with it. And I had great coaching staffs down in Tucson that told me to keep going, and they showed confidence in me. So it was really nice to get that opportunity last year finally.
And Dysin, last year, 8 Roadrunners all made their NHL debuts, including you last season. 16 players were called up in total. So you must have felt right at home once you got the call up and you had guys around you, and more guys were added on as well.
Yeah, definitely the familiarity of all the guys coming up after me. It was nice to have them around. Made me feel more at home and more comfortable in that environment. So that definitely helped me out.
Yeah, Dysin, as for the season as a whole, they certainly needed you last year on the blue line, and you made the most of it. But also, General Manager Bill Armstrong brought in some help. Troy Stetcher, Josh Brown, and Patrick Nemeth all coming in. How do you think those guys are going to help out the defense of the Coyotes this year?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of injuries to the back end last year, so a lot of different guys got opportunity, including me. So just having more guys around, especially those types of guys with the experience they have, it'll be good for the depth of our blue line, and hopefully we won't have as much injuries this year, and we should have a good back end.
Dysin, explain to the maybe the novice hockey fan or those that don't follow the NHL quite as much as maybe Jason and I do, but what is the difference? What's the real difference you're feeling and you're seeing on a nightly basis when you go from the AHL to the NHL?
Just everything picks up another notch in speed wise. The execution, players can make those plays at higher speed. So just the game comes at you fast, but at the same time, it's a little more structured. There's not as much running around. So sometimes you actually have a little bit more time out there, but yeah, like I said, it comes fast at you. So it's difficult to defend for sure.
Yeah, speed definitely is noticeable. All right, so you're playing for the Coyotes this year. After 1 year of playing at regular size, if you will, NHL arena, you're going to be playing in that smaller arena up in Tempe, almost like an American arena. Have you been in there yet? What do you think the facilities are like, and what are you expecting for this season playing in a smallish arena in Tempe? Actually, that arena is smaller than the one at the Tucson Convention Center up in Tempe for the Coyotes this year.
Yeah, I checked it out last week. It's definitely smaller than the one in Tucson, but it's going to be a great atmosphere, I think. It's a brand new building, obviously, so it's very nice in there, and I think we should get good crowds. It should be loud, so it'll be entertaining games for sure. It should make the game feel even faster.
And you might end up having a real home ice advantage that that the other teams are kind of come in there and they're not going to quite know what to feel, especially their first time in. You guys will get real used and comfortable to that small arena, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think even when I played junior hockey, there was always the one arena that was smaller, and that team always seemed to do better at home than on the road. So, yeah, I think that the small ice surface or the smaller arena makes it feel smaller. So it'll definitely be an advantage for us, I think. So I'm looking forward to it.
And as for the game against the Ducks on Sunday, what have you been told? It sounded like you're coming down. You're going to be playing a little bit. Do you know how many guys they're bringing down, and how they plan to divide up the ice time, or that's something that gets told kind of a couple days before the game?
Yeah, that's camp officially started. We'll find out within the next couple of days what their plans are for that. But like I said, I hope I'm a part of that group that's coming to Tucson. It mean a lot for me to come back and play in front of the crowd in a Coyotes jersey.
I have a sneaking suspicion that you'll probably be on the roster, but
Yeah.
you never know. You never know. But I just I don't have any inside knowledge whatsoever. Take me back to that first NHL game. What was it? October 18th of this past season against Columbus. The nerves, and then the getting out on the ice, and then the thrill of scoring your first NHL goal right away. Tell me about the emotions that were that night.
Yeah, I was definitely very nervous. It's something I've been working towards my whole life, and like I said, 5 years playing in the minors without even getting called up. So it was kind of an unfamiliar territory I was in, but definitely just super excited to be out there. And then, yeah, scoring the goal was an unreal feeling. I wasn't sure if I'd ever get that. I mean, I only had one goal the year before in Tucson. So to get the first goal out of the way on my first game, it was pretty special.
Pat mentioned the 3-year contract that the Coyotes gave you. What does that do for you going into the preseason? I'm thinking you're somebody who always had to, fight for ice time, and you're still going to have to do that. There's always competition in the training camp that starts. But what does having that 3-year contract do for you going into this season?
Yeah, going into camp, you always kind of go into camp a little nervous, not knowing what to expect. But having the 3-year deal kind of calms those nerves a bit and gives you a bit of confidence going in. And like you said, there's going to always be competition. They brought in a lot of new D during the off season, so you're gonna have to fight for your minutes. But it's good to have that healthy competition within the group. It gets the best out of the guys.
Dyson, you just mentioned bringing a few new guys on the blue line, and this team has unfortunately had its struggles in recent years. But what is the sense that you have about where this team is and the direction it's heading with a new arena and having to fight for potentially a playoff spot? Where are they right now as an organization?
Yeah, I think we're still kind of in that rebuilding phase, but I think after last season, I think we're going to take a step forward again this year. I mean, it was all new staff and new philosophies, so the guys are kind of more in tune with the systems, I think, going into the season, and bringing in those new guys in the back end. I think that'll help a lot for us. And there's going to be a lot of competition at camp. There's a lot of younger guys are hungry for spots too. So I like that direction we're going in. That's for sure.
Dyson, last one for me. Did you have you spent so much in time in Tucson with 6 years here. Did you have a favorite restaurant or a favorite a place to hang out where you and the guys went? What were some of your favorite things to do or places to eat or hang out in Tucson?
Yeah, honestly, just hanging out with the guys that we would usually all stay at the same apartment, and I always had a pool and the nice mountain views in the background. So, I mean, that was always a fun time. I can't even think of one restaurant off the top of my head. Tucson's got a good food scene there. We have lots of restaurants that we like down there. And then part of my family, like, we love going on hikes. We did the forget the name of it now, but there was a loop and there was water. The dog loved it. So, I mean, there's lots of good hiking there too. So we really enjoyed Tucson. We enjoyed our time there.
Maybe River Loop or Sabino Canyon. One of those.
Sabino Canyon, but
yeah.
Well, a lot of good stuff to do down here, and I'm sure when you come down, you'll feel right at home going into the TCC and putting on those skates. And we hope to see you on Sunday, Dyson, lacing up those skates and putting on a little bit of a show for the Tucson fans.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, hope I get to be there and dress in front of the Tucson crowd again.
All right, Dyson, thanks so much for a few minutes here on the Huddle with Pat and myself. Good luck to you in the game Sunday and the rest of the year as well.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck this season.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome.
All right, take care.
That was Dysin Mayo, Arizona Coyotes defenseman, ahead of their preseason game that the Coyotes are going to play against the Anaheim Ducks here on Sunday. It's been a few years. It happened 4 years ago.
2017, I think, was the last time that there was an exhibition game here. So
yeah. So that's going on. The other things going on, certainly a lot of football, and we'll get to Herm Edwards, but first we'll touch, Pat, on the U of A football game and a game, really, Pat, that they would not have won last year, right? At a time on Saturday, it didn't look like they were going to win on Saturday. That North Dakota State offensive line was a punishing one, and I thought they were wearing down the Arizona Wildcat defense. And sure enough, Pat, I was anchoring sports Saturday night at the station on K-Gun I and Ryan Fish, our weekend news anchor, drove to the game so we could catch the end of the game because the game was so late. And the third and fourth down stops that we see right there actually happened in the cars. I couldn't believe that they stopped them. But Pat, give that defense credit for coming up with the big plays when they needed to.
Yeah, and I think there's no doubt, Jason, you have to give the defense credit for coming up big late in that game. But the play before that, when I spotlighted last night, was the 4th and 1, and then that touchdown pass. So they took advantage of what the defense did, but they had to make that 4th down play, and it was a heck of a catch by Cowing on a pass over to the sideline. And then, of course, he caught the touchdown pass. You're exactly right. This is the kind of game that last year, no, there's no way. There's no way that they had the talent. They didn't have the belief. They didn't have the confidence that to get the job done. And certainly that has turned the corner with that kind of, more than anything, the psychological piece of college football. They turned that corner. Jason, they didn't beat a top 10 team. They didn't beat a top 25 team. They beat a very good FBC team. And I'm not taking anything away from North Dakota State. But that's a win that might be something we point back to in the next couple of years, is that was a turning point for the Arizona program. But now, now you look at, okay, now you have to beat one of the big boys. You have to beat a USC, UCLA. You have to beat a Oregon, something like that, in order for us to say, okay, now they can make that run towards a bowl game, a season where they do get finally back into the top 25.
I'd love to see them pull out a win one of the next 2 weeks, whether it be at Cal or home against Colorado, win one more along the way, and then beat ASU at ASU. Or actually, the game is here.
Yeah.
That Friday 1 o'clock game. It's here at Arizona Stadium.
Yeah.
And that would get them to 5 wins and coming off a 1-win season. That was my prediction. If they do better than that and they go 6-6 or even better and go to a bowl game, even better. But that's not my expectation. Pat, I'm really impressed with Hunter Echols and Keon Bars on the defensive line. Hunter Echols has really stepped up and made plays. The first play of the season, he got a sack, right? He's played well ever since. Keon Bars looks like a stud at defensive tackle. I'm really impressed with some of the players on defense, the way they're doing, just despite the amount of yards they gave up against North Dakota State. Yes, that's an FCS team, but Pat, that was not an FCS offensive line.
No, their offensive line is one of their strengths, and that power eye that they run, it can be difficult. I think Jed Fish put it right. It's like playing one of the service academies one game a year, and it's like nothing else you see. Now it's a basic, it's not some trickery kind of, offense that's only just now been invented and everybody's trying to figure out. No, this is as old as football itself, the power eye. But when you execute it so well, then you have to find a way to stop it. I thought Arizona did fine early on, and they obviously did really well late in the game when they really had to. In the middle of the game, not so much. And it was very frustrating as a fan to not only watch the defense bend a lot and then break a couple of times, but the offense really kind of sputtered for a little bit of the time too. You definitely credit North Dakota State, but I really want to give credit to Arizona and to the coaching staff for making those guys believe, because a lot of fans were getting discouraged. They were able to turn that corner in the fourth quarter, and that's how they won the game. We talked about it, the defensive stop, the long drive that was continued on a 4th down play, and then the touchdown. And then don't forget they had to stop him again, and they did.
Yeah, Hunter Lipke, I believe there's a place for him on Sundays somewhere in the NFL. He can do a lot of different things for a team, and he was advertised and he performed as advertised.
He's a beast. Yeah, he really is.
He's a stud for that North Dakota State team.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Talk about Echols real quick. I just
go
want
ahead.
to point that out. This is you and I talked about him, Jason. You remember way back on as we restarted up the huddle and we for the fall, and we started talking about guys we were looking at, and we both talked about Echols and then Harris. We're not seeing Jalen Harris come up with a lot of sacks, but he's doing his job on that side, and that kind of lets Echols have some free reign on the outside. He's the kid that transferred from USC, and we thought he was going to be a stud. But then Keon Bars, who, he just stuffs everything up in the middle. I think this line is certainly one of the best ones we've seen in a little while here at the University of Arizona, and they're only just starting to get working cohesively as a unit. By the end of the season, Jason, might be the strength of the entire team. You don't know.
And Jaden Delore running the ball, you see what a difference that was for this offense. He's got to run the ball. They go up against a Cal team on the road this week. Jack Plummer is the Cal quarterback. He's actually the brother of Wildcat backup quarterback Will Plummer. No relation to Jake. But Cal had a tough loss against Notre Dame, and that's the opponent for the Wildcats. And boy, if they ever came up with a win here on the road, that'd be something else. They already won one game on the road, so they can get it done away from home. But Pac-12 is going to be a different story. Like you said, they beat a Mountain West team, and they did beat an FCS team. They're going to see a team more comparable in size to Mississippi State when they go on the road Saturday.
Right, and it's a Cal team. Jason, don't forget, Cal came in here last year and they were depleted by COVID. That's going to play.
They were not happy. That's right. They're not going to be happy about that.
Right, because in a lot of ways, that was the first game we saw where the conference just finally said, you're going to have to play. Sorry, you're going to have to play. Before that, they were canceling games. Remember, or they were postponing them to play. To play at a different time that met the schedule. So finally, they just had to implement the rule. Sorry, you've just got to play, and that's what happened. And Cal was, that game.
Yeah, half.
That game was really low scoring and really, kind of a dull game. And then Arizona pulls it out. A win's a win. I'm not trying to take anything away from Arizona. My point is, Cal's going to remember that, and Cal is also coming off a game they thought they should have won at Notre Dame, and didn't kind of finish that game. There's a lot of things that scare me about this game from the Arizona Wildcats perspective.
Understood. And they got Colorado coming in the week after that. And certainly also, we talk about Arizona and where they could get wins this year. And certainly we're pointing to the ASU game because we knew how ASU kind of was looking going into the season. And certainly they lose at home to Eastern Michigan. And now a little surprised that this didn't happen later in the season or at the end of the season, but Herm Edwards out at ASU. I watched, Pat, the news conference with athletic director Ray Anderson, who of course didn't take any blame. He's the one who hired Herm Edwards, and he really said some damning things. I thought he said they wanted a coach who understood NIL better, understood the transfer portal better, and understood all the different things that you have to deal with younger athletes. I was surprised to hear that. And I was surprised to hear him talk about the energy of the team. If they had this many issues, I think they should have made the move at the end of last year going into the off season, because this is going to have them take a step back in recruiting. But anyway, Herm Edwards gone after just 3 games in Tempe.
A couple of thoughts on what you were just saying, Jason. First of all, it never works when you have a head coach where you have to force them, or you go ahead and fire some of his assistants and say, we're replacing those assistants for whatever reason. I'm thinking about not only ASU, they fired all those assistant coaches because of the improper recruiting and things that were going on.
Right, they've got an investigation against them too.
Right, because of the investigation.
And a couple of them left on their own, I think, too.
Some of them left on their own, you're right. But it reminds me of what happened at Nebraska as well. Nebraska last season told Scott Frost to fire all of his assistants and we'll keep you. In Herm Edwards' case, it was like, well, Herm, things aren't going well. This investigation doesn't look like it's going well, but we'll keep you. Just bring in a whole bunch of other new assistant coaches. It doesn't work. It never works. It never will work. If you're going to stick with your guy, you got to stick with his staff. If you're not, you need to move on. They probably could have done it a year ago. Now, I'll say this. Rewind all the way back to the day that Herm Edwards was hired. You and I had this discussion. You were hopeful and thinking that Herm Edwards had a lot of cachet with his ESPN gig and everybody knowing him from that. And I said, I just don't think it's going to work. And one of the reasons why I didn't think it was going to work, and you mentioned it, there was a changing NCAA at that point. The transfer portal was coming. Herm Edwards had never seen a transfer portal. I realized nobody had, but Herm Edwards didn't have some, ability to suddenly navigate the transfer portal like no other coach. He'd been out of coaching for a while. He had been out of college coaching for decades. Then you add in the NIL, and then you add in this player today is nothing like the college player that Herm Edwards coached back in the day. I didn't think it was going to go well. It went a little bit better in year 1 and 2 than I thought it would. And then it went exactly the way I thought it was going to go the last couple of years. I just didn't think he was the right coach for this time of college football. I just didn't think it was going to work.
No, he had a couple of years, and he actually had a really good recruiting class a couple of years ago. I think it was more a situation of what I said was, hey, there's a lot of people out there who say, this is a home run. He's the football CEO. This is the new model and the new way of doing things. Then you had a lot of other people who said, this is going to completely blow up. And a lot of times when those two things, you hear those two things, something in the middle happens. And that's really what I think happened. They were 26-20. It's not terrible. I don't think he even had a losing season, if I'm not mistaken. They did just about how ASU normally does. He didn't do any better or any worse than Todd Graham
which
did.
is exactly why did you do it then? You know what I mean? I know you did it because you thought he was going to be better, but he wasn't. He wasn't.
I'll tell you what else, Pat, and you're not going to like this. You're not going to like this, Pat. 4-0 against Arizona. You know where I was going.
No, and Arizona,
but Jason, that's not Herm. Hey, Pat, that's not Herm Edwards. That's 3-0 against Kevin Sumlin and 1-0 against Kevin Sumlin's leftover mess that he left for Jed Fish.
You can say 4-0, that's great, but yes, Arizona was depleted. It's the worst 4-year stretch in all of Power 5 football. Until now that they've got the 2 wins this year. Remember, they only had 1 win over basically a 3-year season. So, minus the COVID games that they didn't play. But the point is, it probably the wrong time for Herm Edwards. In my estimation, that's not how college football players respond nowadays. It'll be very interesting to see the way they go. I see names like Urban Meyer, and I think, I don't know.
Well, that's why I think that they made the move, because they saw Nebraska fans chant for Urban Meyer. I think they want to get a little head start on this process.
They might try to do that, but there are a couple other names. Who's the Carolina Panthers NFL coach that everybody says is about to get fired? They're even talking about that. I don't know. You've got a program there that has made a bad hire, and now we'll see how they can rectify it. Nobody there is, in trouble apparently, but we'll see. We'll see how ASU does.
That's going to be a tough rebuild. I mean, you look at the Arizona rebuild and how tough that's been for Jed Fisher, for anybody. They've lost a lot of players. They had a rough recruiting class last year. It's going to be tough to recruit this year with no head coach in there. I think that's going to be one heck of a rebuild for ASU. I'm not sure they quite understand. Maybe they do. What's ahead? That's going to be a very difficult rebuild. They're going to have to do. What did Dave Meeke say? Rebuild from the studs of the house or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. You got to rebuild from this. Yeah. Strip it all down to the studs, and then you got to rebuild it back again. And I think to that point, Jason, you've got to find a coach now that you look at, how I am. I'm still waiting to see if Jed Fish is actually the play calling tough game when it's a top 10 matchup kind of. Is he that kind of coach? Hopefully we'll find out. But you've got to find a guy like a Jed Fish who has, for whatever reason, an ability to talk players into transferring here or committing as a senior in high school to come to the University of Arizona with a 1-10 record, and now a 2-1 record that, if they win 4 games, great. If they win 5 games, terrific this year. So my point is, you've got to find somebody who is a salesman and who does a lot of talking up a program that doesn't have, the actual hard and fact numbers that show that you're going to be a star player on a terrific team that's going to get a lot of national exposure, and you're going on to the NFL. You have a guy telling you that you're going to get exposure, and I'm going to make sure you get to the NFL, but you don't have necessarily the win-loss record to prove it.
Got to trust that process.
I was just going to say that. You got to trust the process.
Trust that process.
He said it again on Saturday night. Did you catch that? He said it again.
More than once.
Yeah.
More than once. We got a few more. We're compiling a trust this process list that back at the station. We're having a little fun with that. He's Pat Paris. I'm Jason Barr. We're talking sports here on the Huddle. A couple thoughts here to end. Stanley Berryhill, star player for Arizona football last year.
Yeah.
Goes to the practice squad of the Arizona Cardinals. Good to see him get another shot. I didn't verify that. I saw that on Twitter, so I'm going.
I actually saw the newspaper as well. So
okay,
I
good.
think,
okay.
I think
I caught that. So I'm trusting.
And it's on the waiver wires at this point. It's on the waiver wires. So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So good to see that. Pat, am I upset at myself for turning that Cardinals game off? I know I
Oh, you
wasn't the
turned
only,
it off.
I know I wasn't the only one. I was just so frustrated. I just didn't want to watch anymore. And I can't believe they came back and won that game. And
They did.
that's crazy. You got to get a little luck when that happens, and they did, and that's fine too. And just a crazy win for the Cardinals, and one
Well,
they really needed. I mean, don't let that get lost. I mean, they were 0-1, and they were looking really bad through a game and a half. That can really change morale quickly. So good for the Cardinals to get that win.
It's interesting to read some of the comments and hear some of the comments from both Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach, and from Kyler Murray. There seems to be a little bit of back and forth jabbing at one another right now, and it's subtle. You may have to read between the lines a little bit, but you hear things like Kyler Murray saying basically, when it was crunch time, I just took it over and I just did what I had to do. And then you hear a Cliff Kingsbury say things like, yeah, he did what he had to do. I sure wish he would have started doing that a little earlier in the game. I don't know how that relationship was going to end up. I've said all along that with that whole Kyler Murray, ghosting the Cardinals on social media and then demanding a contract, and it worked out. He got a contract. I just don't know about the hard feelings and how all that's working now between the dynamic between the head coach and the quarterback right now.
Well, we've seen Kyler Murray be a little petty. Kingsbury is a little easier to he's easier to get along with. So I'd be surprised if that was coming from him. But yeah, I mean, listen, that's going on, forever in football with that coach and quarterback, and let me do my thing. I mean, obviously, John Elway, Dan Reeves is the biggest example of that back in the day. So that's nothing new. But I'd be surprised if that was going to continue from Kingsbury. I bet he'll squash that, especially with a quarterback with a long-term contract like that.
For their sake, I hope so. And one game does not a season make, for sure. And that, there's a parallel with the University of Arizona. One game doesn't a season make, but you sure like the direction the University of Arizona football team is heading. Getting a win for the Cardinals was huge because they could not afford to go to 0-2.
Yeah, Bruce Arians even made a couple comments about Tom Brady in the media 2 years ago about playing better. Yeah, so that happens.
No, it happens. It happens. There
that
just
all
seemed
gets
to be some
with W's.
Yeah, it does. But there just seemed to be a Kyler Murray kind of a jab at not letting him kind of take the game over. He wants to do a little bit more, and then Cliff Kingsbury kind of shot back a little bit. But you're right; it could be all blown over by the end of the week.
All right, we'll end on this as we get set to the bottom of the hour here, as we do this show live. Next Tuesday, Pat, we got a great guest, Dr. Robbins, University of Arizona president, big sports fan. We're going to talk Arizona sports with him. He is quite knowledgeable, and so that'll be great to get his insights. I'm really looking forward to that. So want to let everybody know about that for next Tuesday.
Yeah, and you're a good get because you saw him up at the Diamondbacks game right on University of Arizona night.
That's right. So looking forward to that. All right, Pat, thanks for joining, and thanks everybody for listening here. We didn't get a lot of comments today, I don't think. Let me just double check. But we know we get a lot of views when it gets recorded on the delay on the OTA. So we did this Tuesday live at 3 o'clock. We'll be back here next Tuesday at the same time with Dr. Robbins. For Pat Paris, I'm Jason Barr. This has been The Huddle here on KGUN 9. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.